The young alien queen ordered his capture, but the human faced her without fear, beneath the twin suns of Zero 7. The air shimmered with heat and tension. The silver spires of the Kalari hive rose like blades from the crimson soil their surfaces. Humming with ancient energy at the heart of this fortress sat Lyra, the youngest queen. The Kalari had ever known. Her skin glowed faintly. Violet, her eyes large and luminous like polished obsidian. She ruled with a mind sharper than any blade and a will colder than the void between stars. For weeks her scouts had reported strange sightings. A lone human male moving through the outer wastes, surviving where nothing else could. He carried no weapons, no armor, only a tattered suit and a stubborn will that refused to break. The Kalari had long dismissed humans as primitive, soft, fragile creatures not worth their notice. But this one was different. He had evaded their drones, avoided their patrols, and even disabled 2 of their sentry drones. With nothing but rocks and cunning, Lyra had watched the footage herself again and again, the way he moved like water around danger. The calm in his eyes, even when cornered, it intrigued her, and that frightened her more than any enemy ever had. So she gave the order, capture him alive. Now he stood before her in the throne chamber, bound in energy cuffs that pulsed with every heartbeat. The air around him thick with the scent of ozone and fear. Yet his posture remained straight. His gaze steady. He did not tremble. He did not bow. Lyra rose from her crystalline throne, her long robes flowing like liquid starlight. She stepped down the dais until she stood only a few paces from him. Her guards tensed, their claws flexing, ready to strike at the slightest threat, but she raised a single hand and they stilled. "You are smaller than I expected," she said, her voice melodic yet edged with steel. The human did not flinch. He met her eyes and said simply, "So are you." A murmur rippled through the chamber. No one spoke to the queen that way. Not even the high elders. Lyra tilted her head, studying him as if he were a puzzle she had never seen before. "You have no weapons, no ship, no allies. You are alone on a world that kills most beings within hours, and yet you walk as if you own the ground beneath your feet." Why, he shifted slightly, the energy cuffs sparking against his wrists. "I was lost," he said simply. "My ship crashed. I just want to go home." Lyra circled him slowly, her bare feet silent on the smooth floor. "You disabled 2 of my drones with stones. You avoided our thermal scans. You survived the acid storms of the eastern wastes, and you expect me to believe you are just trying to go home?" "I expect nothing," he replied, "but the truth." She stopped in front of him again, her eyes narrowing. "You are either very brave or very stupid. Maybe both," he said, a ghost of a smile touching his lips. For the first time in years, Lyra felt something unfamiliar stir inside her curiosity. Yes, but something else too. Something warm and unsettling. She had been raised to see emotion as weakness. The Kalari prided themselves on logic, precision, control. But this human made her feel things she could not name. "Why did you not run when my hunters found you?" she asked. "Because running gets you killed," he said calmly. "Standing your ground sometimes gives you a chance. And what chance do you think you have?" "No," he looked around the chamber, at the towering guards, at the glowing walls, at the queen herself. Then back at her eyes. "I have the same chance I always had, the one I make for myself." Lyra was silent for a long moment, then she turned to her guards. "Release him." "Me queen," one of the guards hissed, stepping forward. "This is madness. Do it," she commanded, her voice leaving no room for argument. The energy cuffs fell away with a soft click. The human rubbed his wrists but did not move to attack or flee. He simply stood there watching her. "You surprise me, human," she said. "My name is Lisa," he said. "Lisa?" She repeated the name, sounding foreign on her tongue. "Why did you tell me your name?" "Because names matter," he said. "You are Lyra, queen of the Kalari. You rule this world with power and fear. But you are still a person, and so am I." No one had ever called her a person before. She was queen, heir, sovereign ruler, but never just a person. The word felt strange yet comforting, like a memory she had forgotten. "Why are you here, Lisa?" she asked softly. "My ship was damaged in a solar flare. I crashed here by accident. I have no interest in your war, your politics, or your empire. I just want to fix my ship and leave. You could have stolen supplies, you could have hidden, you could have fought, but you did none of those things. I did what I had to survive, he said, but I won't start a war. Over it, Lyra turned and walked back to her throne. She sat slowly, her mind racing. The elders would demand his execution. They would say he was a threat, a spy, a weakness in their defenses. But looking at him now, she saw none of those things. She saw a being who faced death without blinking, who spoke truth without fear, who saw her not as a weapon but as a person. You will stay here, she said. Not as a prisoner, but as a guest. Lisa frowned but nodded. If that is what it takes. For days Lisa stayed. In the guest quarters, a room carved from living crystal with walls that shifted color with the light. Lyra visited him often, not as a queen, but as herself. They spoke of many things, of stars and silence, of loss and hope. Lisa told her of Earth, of oceans and forests, of laughter and music, things the Kalari had long forgotten in their pursuit of perfection. In return, Lyra showed him the heart of the hive. Not the weapons, not the war rooms, but the nursery where young Kalari slept, curled together. In soft light, the gardens where bioluminescent flowers bloomed in silence. The archives where stories older than galaxies were kept. You are not what I expected, she admitted one evening as they stood on a balcony overlooking the city. Neither are you, he said. She looked at him, then really looked at him, not as an alien, not as a threat, but as someone who saw the world differently, someone who chose kindness even when it cost him. The elders came the next morning, their faces hard, their voices sharp. Queen Lyra, the human must be dealt with. He is a risk, a variable we cannot control. Lyra stood tall, her violet skin glowing with resolve. He is under my protection. That is not wise, one elder snapped. Wisdom is not always logic, she replied. Sometimes it is listening to something deeper than fear. The elders left, but their warning hung in the air like storm clouds. That night, Lyra found Lisa on the balcony again. They want you gone, he said without turning. They will not have their way. You cannot protect me forever. I do not want to protect you, she said, stepping beside him. I want to understand you. He looked at her then, and for the first time she saw something in his eyes. Not fear, not defiance, but trust. I think you already do. Weeks passed. The hive changed slowly at first, then faster. The young ones began to ask questions about Earth, about music, about stories. The guards no longer glared at Lisa when he walked the halls. Some even nodded in respectfully. Lyra found herself smiling more often, laughing, even something the elders called dangerous. But peace never lasts. A rival hive attacked without warning. Their warriors swift and brutal. They sought to overthrow Lyra, to claim the throne for themselves. In the chaos, Lisa did not hide. He fought not with weapons, but with strategy, using his knowledge of terrain and timing to guide Lyra's forces. He saved dozens of young Kalari by leading them through hidden tunnels. He stood on the front lines, not to kill, but to shield. When it was over, the rival hive lay defeated, not by brute force, but by cleverness and courage. Lyra found Lisa in the healing chamber. His arm bandaged, his face bruised, but his eyes still calm. You could have left, she said. You could have taken your ship and gone. Why would I leave when my friend was in danger? Friend, she whispered the word like a secret. His friends. She reached out and touched his hand, her fingers cool against his skin for the first time. She felt not like a queen, but like herself. After that, things changed. Faster, the hive began to open its doors to new ideas, to stories, to music. Lisa helped them rebuild not just their walls, but their hearts. And when his ship was finally repaired, he stood before Lyra once more. I have to go, he said. I know, she replied. But I will come back, will you? He smiled, that quiet, steady smile that had first caught her attention. Yes. She did not ask when, she did not beg him to stay. She simply nodded, because she understood now that trust was not about holding on, but about letting go and believing the other would return as his ship rose into the twin suns. Lyra stood alone on the balcony, but she did not feel alone anymore. Somewhere out there in the vast dark, a human named Lisa carried a piece of her world with him, and she carried a piece of his, and for the first time in centuries, the Kalari queen felt not fear but hope. Months passed like slow tides on Zira 7. The twin suns rose and set in their endless dance, and Lyra ruled with a quiet strength that surprised even her own council. The hive no longer echoed only with orders and logic, but with soft songs from the nursery, with questions from the young, and with the occasional hum of a human melody, drifting from the archives where Lisa had once stayed. Yet every evening Lyra stood on the same balcony, her eyes fixed on the stars, wondering if he would return. She did not speak of it to anyone, not even her closest advisor, but the silence in her chamber grew heavier with each passing cycle. Then one night the sky split open, not with fire or war, but with a single ship, small, sleek, and scarred from deep travel. It descended without warning, bypassing all defense grids as if it knew them by heart. The hive alarms did not sound because the ship broadcast an old code. One Lisa had left behind a code that meant friendly. Raranchi did not walk with royal grace. She ran barefoot through the corridors. Her robes trailing behind her, guards shouted, but she ignored them. She reached the landing platform just as the ramp lowered. And there he was. Lisa stepped out, not in a tattered suit, but in clean flight gear. His face older, his eyes tired, but his smile the same steady thing that had first disarmed her. "You came back," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "You said I would," she replied. "And I keep my promises." The hive buzzed with unease. The elders gathered. In the central chamber, their voices sharp with suspicion. Why had he returned? What did he want? Was this a trick? Lyra faced them alone, her spine straight, her voice calm. "He came because he said he would." "That is not reason enough," one elder snapped. "Humans are unpredictable. They change their minds like the wind." "Then let the wind speak for itself," Lyra said, and she turned to Lisa. He stepped forward, not with arrogance but with respect. "I came back because your world changed me, and I thought maybe mine could change your." She opened his pack and pulled out a small device. It hummed softly with a blue light inside. It was a data core filled with Earth's knowledge. Not weapons, not war plans, but music stories. Images of oceans, forests, cities, children, laughing. The elder stared as if it might explode. "You bring a song," said another elder, his voice laced with scorn. "Bring you understanding," Lisa said gently. "Songs are how humans remember who they are, just like your archives hold your past." "This holds mine." Lyra took the core from her hands and held it up to the light. It glowed like a captured star. "We will study it," she declared, not as a threat, but as a gift. That night the hive changed again. The young ones gathered in the learning halls as Lyra played the first song, a simple tune on a piano, soft and slow. The notes floated through the air like falling leaves. Some Kailari wept, though they did not know why. Others sat in stunned silence, their rigid minds slowly softening. Lisa stayed, not as a guest this time, but as a teacher. He showed them how humans built not just with metal, but with hope. How they planted trees they would never sit under. How they wrote letters to people they loved even if they knew they would never be read in return. Lyra showed him deeper parts of the hive places. No outsider had ever seen the memory pools where Kailari stored their dreams, the resonance chambers where thoughts became sound and sound became truth. They walked together through gardens that bloomed only under moonlight. They spoke of loss. Lisa of his crew lost in the solar flare. Lyra of her mother who had died defending the hive from a civil war. "You carry your pain like armor," she said one night, "and you hide yours behind a crown," he replied. She looked away, but he gently touched her arm. "It is okay to feel." Lyra, she did not answer. But for the first time, she let a single tear fall, violet and shimmering like liquid starlight. As seasons turned, the bond between human and Kailari grew stronger. Trade began not of weapons, but of ideas. Earth seeds were planted in Ziran soil, and Kailari. Crystals were sent to human scientists who marveled at their self-healing properties. But not all welcomed this change. From the outer rim, new threats stirred the Vorthax, a warrior race who saw emotion as poison and unity as weakness. They had watched the Kailari soften, and they saw it as a sign of decay. They came not with words, but with fire. Their fleet, dark and jagged, tore through the outer defenses before anyone could react. They burned villages, they shattered spires. They broadcast a single message: surrender your queen and the human, or be erased. Panic spread through the hive. For the first time in generations, fear returned. Ra called a council. But Lisa stood beside her, not as an advisor but as an equal. "We cannot fight them with old ways," he said. "They expect rage, they expect war. But we have something they do not." "What is that?" Lyra asked each other. His plan was simple yet bold. Instead of meeting the Vorthax in battle, the Kylari would open their hive not as a fortress but as a home. They would broadcast not threats but songs, the very songs Lisa had brought. They would show the Vorthax not an enemy, but a people who chose to feel. The elders called it madness, but Lyra trusted him, and the day the Vorthax ships hovered over the capital, their weapons charged and ready, Lyra stood on the highest spire with Lisa at her side below them. The entire hive gathered, not armed, not hidden but open. Then the music began. Piano notes drifted into the sky, followed by children's voices singing a lullaby from Earth. Then Kylari chants wove through them, ancient and new, blending into something neither race had ever heard. The Vorthax commander hesitated. On his ship screen showed not warriors but families, not soldiers but students. His own people watched from below, their rigid faces flickering with something unfamiliar. Doubt, one by one, the Vorthax weapons powered down. The commander landed alone. He was tall, his armor black, his eyes cold, but when he saw the hive not as a target, but as a place where young ones held hands and elders shared stories, something in him cracked. "Why do you not fight?" he asked Lyra. "Because fighting only makes more fighters," she replied. "We choose to make healers, thinkers, dreamers." He looked at Lisa, then back at Lyra. "You trust this human he trust, what he reminds me of." She said that strength is not in claws or cannons, but in the choice to be kind, even when it is hard. The Vorthax commander stayed for 3 days. On the third morning he knelt, not in surrender but in respect. "Teach us," he said, and so the hive grew once more. Not by conquest, but by connection. Lysa remained this time not as a visitor, but as part of the hive. His quarters were no longer guest rooms, but a home near Lyra's chambers. They walked together every evening, sometimes speaking, sometimes in silence. One night, as the twin suns dipped below the horizon, Lyra turned to him. "Do you ever miss Earth every day?" he said. "But I found something here I did not know I was looking for." "What is that? A place where I belong?" She smiled, and for the first time she reached for his hand, and he took it. No words were needed. Above them the stars burned bright, not as distant lights but as promises. The galaxy was vast and full of danger. But in that moment on Zira 7-2, beings from different worlds stood together, not as queen and human, not as alien and outsider, but as friends, as equals, as something new, and in that unity they found a power greater than any weapon, the power to change not just a world but the future itself. Time moved gently on Zira 7 like wind through tall grass. The school grew, the garden spread, and the songs of 3 worlds blended into one steady rhythm. Lisa no longer fixed just machines, he now helped young ones mend broken friendships. Maria taught not only history but how to listen. Lyra walked among her people not as ruler but as guide, yet even in harmony change comes. One morning, a child found a strange stone near the eastern ridge. It glowed faintly blue and hummed when held. It was not Kylari, not human, not Vorthax. Elders examined it but found no threats. Still Lyra felt uneasy. That night she dreamed again, not of the void mind, but of a place she had never seen, a city of glass towers under a single yellow sun. And in the center of that city stood a mirror showing her own face, but older eyes, tired and alone. She woke with a start. Lisa was already awake, sitting by the window. "You felt it too," he said. "Felt what?" "The pull." He held out his hand. In his palm rested a small blue shard, identical to the child's stone. "It called to me." Maria entered without knocking. She held another shard. "It woke me too." She said, "It showed me Earth, but empty, no people. No sound, just wind through empty streets." They gathered in the garden, the 3 of them, and placed the shards together. They fused into a single orb, and from it rose a soft voice. Not in words, but in feeling. Come, not a command, not a threat, just an invitation. Lyra looked at Lisa. What if it is a trap? What if it is a beginning? They decided to go not with armies, not with fear, but with open hands. They took a small ship, one built by all 3 peoples, Kylari crystal for navigation, Vorthax alloy for strength, human design for comfort. As they left Zira 7 behind, the hive watched in silence. No one cried. No one shouted. They simply stood together, trusting. The orb guided them through folds of space they had never known, past dead stars and silent planets, until they reached a world hidden behind a veil of light. It was Earth, but not the Earth Lisa or Maria remembered. Cities stood whole but empty. No cars, no voices, no birds. Yet the air was clean, the rivers ran clear, the trees bore fruit, and in the center of the old United Nations plaza stood a structure of living light. They stepped out of their ship boots, crunching on quiet pavement. Then a figure appeared, not solid, not ghost, but made of shifting light. It spoke in a voice that was many voices. Human Kalari, Vorthax, and others they did not know. We are the last echo. Who are you? Lisa asked. We were the first to fall to the silence. The void mind you defeated was only a fragment of a greater hunger. We tried to fight with weapons, with walls, with war. We failed. So we chose another way. We gathered all that remained of our worlds, our songs, our stories, our hopes, and we placed them here in this sanctuary, waiting for those who would come not to take but to listen. Ra stepped forward. Why us? Because you did not destroy the void. Mind, you healed the wound it fed on you, chose unity, when division would have been easier. Maria looked around at the empty streets. Where is everyone? They are here. The echo said, not in body, but in memory. In every book, every painting, every note of music, we saved them so they would not be lost. The orb. In their ship pulsed. You may take what you need, the echo said, but know this. The silence still drifts. It seeks worlds that forget how to care. How do we stop it? Not by fighting. The echo replied, but by remembering. And so they walked the silent Earth. Lisa found his old home still standing. Maria found her favorite cafe, its chairs neatly set. Ra found a child's drawing taped to a window. A son with a smiling face. They gathered what they could, not things but meaning. A music box that played a lullaby. A journal filled with hopes, a seed from a long-dead tree as they prepared to leave. The echo gave them one more gift. A seed of light. Plant this, where hearts are open, it said, and it will grow into a bridge between worlds. They returned to Zyra 7, not as explorers but as carriers of memory. They planted the seed in the heart of the school. It grew fast, not into a tree but into a pillar of soft light that hummed with countless voices. The young ones gathered around it and heard stories from worlds they had never known. A human child laughed at a Kalari joke. A Vorthax elder wept at an Earth poem. A Kalari student sang a song from a dead star system. The hive changed again, not in structure but in soul. They began to send out their own seeds. Not to conquer but to connect. Small ships carried music books, seeds, and songs to distant worlds, not demanding loyalty, but offering friendship. Some worlds rejected them, some ignored them, but some listened. On a dusty planet orbiting a red dwarf, a group of survivors heard a lullaby, and for the first time in years they held each other. On an ice world where silence had ruled for generations, a child touched a seed and saw color for the first time. Back on Zyra 7, Lyra stood with Lisa and Maria, watching the light pillar glow. You think it is enough, she asked. No, Lisa said, but it is a start. Maria smiled. We are not saving the galaxy. We are reminding it how to save itself. Years passed. The light pillar became a beacon, not of power, but of peace. Earth Command sent more ships, not for war but to learn. The Vorthax opened their own sanctuaries. The Kalari shared their memory pools with Aland, Lisa. Lyra and Maria grew older, not weaker but wiser. One evening, as the twin suns set, Lyra sat on the balcony. Where it had all begun, Lisa joined her. His steps slower now, his hair gray. Remember when you ordered my capture, she asked. I remember. You looked terrifying, he said, and you looked like you had nothing to lose. I did not, she said. But you gave me something to protect. They sat in silence, watching the hive below, alive with light and laughter. Maria came out holding 3 cups of tea. You too. Always get quiet at sunset, she said. Someone has to keep you from getting sentimentally. Or laughed, the sound warm and real. We are not sentimental. We are grateful for what, for each other, for this world, for the chance to show the galaxy that kindness is not weakness. Maria sat between them, and they watched the stars appear. One by one, the silence still drifted in, the dark. But now it met not fear but song, not walls but open doors, Not endings, but beginnings. And in that truth they found peace. Not because the universe was safe, but because they chose to make it kind. Together they had turned a crash, a capture, a chance meeting into a legacy not of conquest but of care. And as long as one voice sang, one hand reached out, one heart chose love over fear, the light would never go out. Years flowed like rivers through 07. The twin suns watched over a world no longer divided by blood or origin, but bound by shared days and quiet trust. The hive had grown beyond its silver spires, now dotted with earth trees whose leaves shimmered violet in the alien light. Vorthak stone circles stood beside Kaelari memory pools, and human wind chimes sang in the warm breezes. Lyra no longer wore the heavy robes of queenship. She dressed in simple cloth, woven from Kaelari silk and earth cotton, her crown long set aside, not forgotten but no longer needed for her people. Followed not out of duty but because they believed in her, Lisa stayed not as a visitor, not as a symbol but as himself. He taught the young ones how to mend. Broken things, not just machines but feelings, he showed them. That courage was not the absence of fear but the choice to act. Despite it, together, they built something rare, a home that welcomed all. But peace is not the absence of challenge. It is the presence of care, one cycle. A strange signal pulsed from deep space, not hostile, not friendly. Just lost. Lyra and Lisa stood on the observation deck as the data scrolled across the screen. It is human, Lisa said, his voice tight, but not from any known. Colonino, he replied, this is older than my crash. Older than the solar flare. They traced the signal to a derelict vessel drifting near the edge of the system, its hull scarred by time and radiation, its power nearly gone. Lyra ordered a rescue team, but Lisa insisted on going himself. I know that ship. He said, it is the Aurora, my first command. She did not argue. She simply nodded and joined him inside the Aurora. Silence reigned. Dust floated in the dim light, control panels dark, except for one blinking light in the cockpit. And there in the captain's chair sat a figure frozen in stasis. A woman, pale skin, short brown hair, uniform tattered, but clean. Lisa's breath caught. Mariah. He knew her instantly. His co-pilot. His friend, the one who had stayed behind to reroute power so he could escape the solar flare. He had believed her dead, now she lived. They brought her back to 07 for days. She slept while healers monitored her vitals. When she finally woke, her eyes were sharp but haunted. You left, she said to Lisa, not with anger but with pain. I tried to save you, he replied. I thought you were gone. The Aurora had been caught in the flare's edge. Maria had activated emergency stasis, hoping someone would find her someday. She had waited alone for 7 years. Now she was awake in a world she did not know, among beings she did not understand. Lyra met her with no ceremony. No titles, just a cup of warm tea made from earth herbs and Kaelari blossoms. You are safe, she said. Maria looked at her, then at Lisa, then at the open window where Kaelari children played with Vorthak's pups. Where am I? Home, Lisa said, but Maria did not feel it. She walked the halls like a ghost. She spoke little, she ate less. She flinched at sounds that reminded her of the Aurora's final moments. Lyra watched her closely, not with pity but with understanding. One evening she found Maria on the same balcony where she and Lisa had stood so many times. You miss your world, Maria said without turning. I did, Lyra replied. But I found a new one. What if I cannot, then you build one. Maria finally looked at her eyes wet with unshed tears. How be letting others help you? Slowly, Maria began to heal. She started small, teaching the young ones basic human math, then Earth history, then how to fix old engines. She laughed once when a Kaelari child tried to wear a wrench as a necklace. The sound startled her, but she did not stop. Lisa watched her return to herself and felt both joy and guilty. You carry her pain as if it were yours, Lyra told him. One night I left her behind. You saved yourself so you could save others, including me. He looked at her, then at the stars. What if I had not crashed here? Then I would still be a queen of stone. And this world would be colder. They stood in silence. But Maria's return stirred more than memories. Earth Command had detected the Aurora's signal. A fleet was coming. Not one ship but 5 massive vessels, armed and scanning. They broadcast a single message. Identify the human Lisa and prepare for extraction, Lyra's. Council erupted. They will take him. They will take Maria. They will study our world and use it. Lisa said nothing. That night he found Lyra in the garden. You should go. She said. What Earth is your home? It was, he said. But this is where I belong. They will not. Ask, they will take. Then let them try. She looked at him. Her eyes full of sorrow and pride. You would fight your own people for use. I would protect my family. The word hung in the air. Family, not subjects, not allies, but family. When the Earth fleet arrived, they did not fire, they did not threaten. They simply hovered waitingly. Ra and Lisa stood on the landing platform. Maria beside them. A shuttle descended and from it stepped a woman in a crisp uniform. Her face stern but not cruel. Captain Elena Ross. She said, I am here to bring you home, Lisa. He stepped forward, not in fear but in calm. Am home. Elena's eyes flicked to Lyra, to Maria, to the hive behind them. You have been influenced? No, I have been awakened. Maria spoke. Then I stayed behind so he could live. Now I choose to stay because I want to. Elena studied them, then sighed. Earth has changed too. She said, we lost 3 colonies to the silence, the same emptiness. You fought here, we thought we were alone, Lee. Ra stepped forward. Then you are not Elena. Looked at her, really looked, and for the first time her stern mask softened. What do you offer? A chance, she said, to build something better together. After a long silence. Elena nodded. Then let us talk. Not as commander and alien, but as people. They spoke. For days, not in war rooms, but in gardens over tea and shared meals. Earth learned of the void mind of unity as defensive songs, as shield Zyra. 7 learned of Earth's struggles. Its losses, its hope in the end. Elena did not take Lisa or Mariash, left with something better, an alliance, not of treaties but of trust as her ship departed. Lisa stood with Lyra and Maria watching the stars. You did not have to stay, Maria said. Yes, I did, she replied. This is where I healed you. Lisa? Lyra asked. I stay, because my heart is here, Maria smiled. Then a real one. Good years later, the first human Kaelari Vorthax school opened its doors. Its walls built from earthstone, Zyran, crystal, and Vorthax iron. Its halls filled with laughter in many tongues. Lyra walked. Its corridors not as queen, but as teacher. Lisa fixed the old comm system, humming a tune Maria had taught him. And Maria sat under an earth tree reading to a group of wide-eyed children. The galaxy was still vast, still dangerous, but on Zira 7 they had learned the greatest weapon was not fire or force, but the simple act of choosing each other again and again. And in that choice they found not just survival, but life. Peace settled over Zira 7. Like morning mist, soft and steady, the songs of Earth and the chants of the Kaelari now flowed together in daily life. Young ones learned to draw human faces and plant earth flowers that bloomed in violet hues. The Vorthax who once came as conquerors now sent their own children to study in the shared learning halls. Their warriors traded armor for tools, and their commanders sat in quiet circles listening more than speakingly. Ra no longer ruled from a throne of crystal, but from a garden where benches of living stone curved around a pool that reflected the twin suns she held. Council there with Lisa always near, not as a guard, not as a subject, but as her voice. When doubt crept in, yet even in peace shadows, stir far beyond the rim of known space, something old began to wake. It had no name, not in any language. It was not a race, not a ship, not even a mind as beings understood it. It was hunger. Given form a void that fed on fear and division. It drifted through dead systems, leaving silence in its wake. Planets once bright with life, now cold and empty. Their people gone, not dead but hollow. Their wills erased, it sensed the change on Zyra. 7, it felt the warmth of unity, the hum of shared song, the spark of trust between human and alien, and it hated it. So it sent a whisper, not through comms, not through ships, but through dreams. Lyra woke one night gasping, her skin pale, her hands trembling. She had dreamed of endless dark and a voice that was not a voice saying you are alone. You have always been alone, they will leave you, they do not truly see you. She tried to shake it off, but the feeling clung like smoke. Lisa found her at dawn, sitting by the memory pool, her reflection fractured. You look like you saw a ghost, he said softly. Worse, she replied, a truth. He sat beside her, not pushing, not prying. Just being there. After a long silence, she told him of the dream. He listened, then said, "Dreams are not always lies, but they are not always truth either." "But what if it is right?" she whispered. "What if they only follow me because they fear chaos? What if you only stay because you have nowhere else to go?" He turned to her, his eyes steady. "You know, that is not true." "Do I?" "Yes, because I choose to be here every day just as you choose to lead, not because you must, but because you care." She wanted to believe him, but the whisper had planted a seed, and seeds grow in silence. Days passed and the hive sensed the shift. Lyra spoke less, laughed, less her. Orders grew sharp, her patience thin. The young ones avoided her. The elders exchanged worried glances. Lisa tried to reach her, but she pulled away. "I need to be strong," she said. "I cannot afford softness." "You are strongest when you are honest," he replied. But she did not listen. Then the first disappearance happened. A Vorthax student vanished from the eastern dorm. No signs of struggle. No alarms triggered, just gone. Panic flickered. The next night, 2 Kalari scouts failed to return from patrol. Then a human technician sent by Earth to study the crystal gardens was found unconscious in the archives. His mind empty, his eyes open, but seeing nothing. Fear spread like fire. The elders demanded action. "Lock the gates, seal the hive, find the enemy." Lyra agreed. She ordered patrols, doubled borders, closed all off-world comms, suspended. Even Lisa was barred from the command spire. He stood outside the sealed doors for hours, then finally turned away. That night he did not sleep. Instead, he walked the old tunnels beneath the hive, the ones he had used during the rival attack. He remembered every turn, every hidden door. And as he walked, he noticed something odd. The air carried a faint hum, not mechanical, not biological, but wrong, like static in the bone. She followed it deep below the nursery to a chamber long forgotten even by the Kalari. There in the center floated a shard of black crystal no larger than a hand. It pulsed slowly like a dying heart. And around it the walls were covered in strange symbols, not Kalari, not human, not Vorthax, but something older. He stepped closer, the shard flared, and the whisper came not in his ears but in his mind, "Leave her. She does not need you." She never did. Lisa staggered but did not fall. "You are not real," he said aloud. "And what you fear most." The voice replied that you are not enough. He clenched his fists. "I am enough because I keep trying." The shard dimmed, but Lisa knew this was not over. He raced back to the surface and demanded to see Lyra. She refused, so he did something no one had ever done. He walked into the command spire without permission. Guards moved to stop him, but he spoke one word, "Lyra," and she heard. She stood at the far end of the chamber, her face hard, but her eyes tired. "You disobeyed me," he said, "because you are being poisoned." She laughed a bitter sound. "I am the queen. I am not so easily broken. It is not breaking you, it is isolating you. It wants you to believe you are alone, so you will push everyone away, and then it can take everything." She stared at him, then turned to the window. "How do you know this?" "Because I felt it too," he said. "But I had you to remind me I was not alone now. You need me to do the same." For a long moment she said nothing. Then she whispered, "What if I have already lost them? You have not." He said, "The hive still looks to you, not out of fear but out of hope. They just need you to show them you still believe in them." Tears welled in her eyes, but she did not hide them. "What do we do? Face it together." They returned to the hidden chamber, this time with a small group. The Vorthax commander, a Kalari elder who remembered the old texts, and the human technician now recovering but still weak. The shard pulsed faster as they entered. The elder gasped. "It is a remnant of the void, mined an ancient weapon that feeds on doubt. Can it be destroyed?" "Not by force," the elder said, "only by unity." Liza understood. He turned to the group. "Stand together. Hold hands. Do not let fear separate you." They did. Lyra took Lisa's hand. The Vorthax commander took hers, the elder linked with the technician, and so on until they formed a circle around the shard. Then Lisa began to sing. Not a battle cry, not a spell, but the same lullaby he had played on his first return. Soft, simple human. Lyra joined in with a Kalari harmony. The Vorthax added a low chant. The elder hummed an old nursery rhyme, and the technician whispered a poem from Earth. The chamber filled not with noise, but with connection. The shard trembled, its black surface cracked. Light poured out, not harsh, but warm golden like sunrise, and then it shattered into dust. The whisper vanished. Above them the hive stirred as if waking from a bad dream. The fear lifted, the tension eased. In the days that followed, the disappearances stopped the hollow. Ones regained their thoughts, and the hive grew closer than ever. Lyra returned to the garden, but this time she did not sit alone. Lisa sat beside her, and they watched the young ones play human and Kailari and Vorthax together. "You were right," she said, well, that strength is not in never falling, but in having someone to help you up," he smiled. "And I will always be here to help you up." She leaned her head on his shoulder. Not as queen, but as Lyra. And for the first time in a long time she felt whole. The void mind was gone. But they knew others like it might still drift in the dark, yet they were no longer afraid. Because they had built something the void could not understand. A world where differences did not divide but strengthened. Where a human and an alien queen stood side by side, not out of duty but by choice. And in that choice they found a future brighter than any star.